December 16th, 1944, 5:32 a.m. Bastogne, Belgium. Staff Sergeant Charles MacGillivary is standing in a frozen foxhole when the first German Tiger tank crashes through the tree line 200 yards away. Then another. 12 tanks total. Behind them, 2,000 German soldiers advancing through the snow. MacGillivary has 18 men, no anti-tank weapons, no artillery support, no air cover because of the weather. And about 4 minutes before those tanks reach his position and crush everyone alive. The Battle of the Bulge, Hitler's last major offensive in the West, has just begun. The Germans have achieved complete surprise. They've broken through American lines across an 80-mile front. Entire regiments are surrounded. Others are retreating in chaos. The 101st Airborne Division is trapped in Bastogne, encircled by German forces, running out of ammunition, food, and medical supplies. MacGillivary's company is the only thing standing between those 12 tanks and the road into Bastogne. If the tanks get through, thousands of American soldiers die. The whole defensive position collapses. The Germans win. MacGillivary looks at the tanks, looks at his men, looks at his rifle, which is completely useless against 60 tons of German steel, and he starts laughing. Not nervous laughter, not hysterical laughter. The kind of laugh you make when you realize you're about to do the stupidest, bravest thing of your entire life. What happens next takes 11 minutes. By the time it's over, all 12 German tanks will be destroyed or abandoned. 38 German soldiers will be dead. The rest will retreat. And Charles MacGillivary will have earned the Medal of Honor for possibly the most insane anti-tank action in military history. All because he refused to let physics and common sense stop him. Charles Patrick MacGillivary was born February 6, 1919, in Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, Canada. Yes, Canada. The man who would earn America's highest military decoration wasn't American. He was Canadian, and he didn't join the US Army because of patriotism or ideology. He joined because he was hungry. 1930s. Canada, like everywhere else, was devastated by the Great Depression. Jobs didn't exist. Money didn't exist. MacGillivary's family was poor, working class poor, the kind where you wear the same clothes until they fall apart and you eat whatever you can grow or catch. At 18, MacGillivary crossed the border into the United States, looking for work, looking for anything. He ended up in Boston, found odd jobs, construction, loading docks, whatever paid, still not enough. By 1940, he was desperate enough to consider an option most people avoided, the military. The US Army would take foreign nationals if they promised to pursue citizenship. 3 meals a day, a place to sleep, steady pay. MacGillivary enlisted, not because he wanted to be a soldier, because he wanted to eat. The Army sent him to basic training, then to advanced infantry training, then to the 2nd Armored Division. He was good at it. Being a soldier, the discipline, the structure, the physical demands. MacGillivary was strong, resilient, the kind of person who could endure hardship without complaint because he'd been doing it his whole life. By 1942, he'd made corporal. By 1943, sergeant. June 1944, D-Day. MacGillivary lands in Normandy with the 2nd Armoured Division, the division that would earn the nickname Hell on Wheels. They fight through France. Brutal hedgerow combat. Every field is a fortress. Every stone wall hides German machine guns. The 2nd Armoured pushes forward anyway, mile by bloody mile. MacGillivary distinguishes himself repeatedly, cool under fire, smart tactically, the kind of NCO who keeps his men alive while accomplishing the mission. By December 1944, he's a staff sergeant, leading a section of the 2nd Armoured Division's 41st Armoured Infantry Regiment, Company Y. They're supposed to be in rest positions. The Ardennes Forest, Belgium, quiet sector. Nothing ever happens here. The German army is retreating on all fronts. The war will be over by Christmas. Everyone believes this. Everyone is wrong. December 16th, 1944. Hitler launches Operation Wacht am Rhein, Watch on the Rhine, the last major German offensive of the war. 200,000 German soldiers, 1,400 tanks and assault guns. The plan: break through the weak American lines in the Ardennes, drive to Antwerp, cut the Allied armies in half, force a negotiated peace. It's desperate, it's ambitious, and for the first 48 hours, it works. The Germans achieve complete surprise. Heavy fog grounds Allied aircraft. American units are overrun. Communications collapse. Entire regiments are surrounded and destroyed. The Allies are in chaos. MacGillivary's unit is near Bastogne, a small Belgian town that nobody's heard of. Strategically crucial because 7 major roads converge there. Whoever controls Bastogne controls movement through the entire region. The 101st Airborne Division gets rushed to Bastogne to hold it. They arrive just before the Germans encircle the town completely. Now they're trapped. 13,000 American soldiers surrounded by 45,000 Germans. MacGillivary's 2nd Armoured Division is ordered to break through, relieve Bastogne, stop the German offensive. December 23rd. The weather finally clears. Allied aircraft can fly again. They start hitting German positions, dropping supplies to the trapped 101st. But the ground situation is still desperate. The Germans are pushing hard. They need to take Bastogne before American reinforcements arrive. December 24th, Christmas Eve. MacGillivary's company is holding a defensive position north of Bastogne, a small village called Grand Mesnil, strategic crossroads. If the Germans take it, they can bypass Bastogne and keep driving west. MacGillivary's section is dug in at the edge of town, foxholes and frozen ground, temperature below zero. Everything is ice and snow and misery. They've been here for 2 days. Occasional German probes, small arms fire, nothing serious. Everyone hopes it stays that way. It doesn't. 5:30 a.m., December 24th, still dark. MacGillivary is in his foxhole, trying to stay warm when he hears it. The distinctive grinding rumble of tank tracks. Heavy tracks. Tiger tanks. The most feared weapon in the German arsenal. 88mm main gun that can destroy any Allied tank at 2,000 yards. Armor so thick that most American weapons bounce off. Each Tiger is worth 5 Shermans in combat, and MacGillivary can hear at least 10 of them. He climbs out of his foxhole, looks toward the tree line. The first tank emerges from the forest. Massive, terrifying. Then another, then another. 12 Tigers total, advancing in line. Behind them, he can see German infantry, hundreds of them, maybe 2,000. This isn't a probe. This is a full-scale attack. The Germans are throwing everything at Grand Mesnil because if they take it, Bastogne falls. MacGillivary looks at his section. 18 men, rifles, 1 machine gun, a few grenades. No bazookas, no anti-tank weapons. The bazookas were sent to another unit yesterday. Communication with headquarters is down. The radios stopped working in the cold. They're on their own. The tanks are 200 yards away. Closing. MacGillivary should order a retreat. That's the tactical decision. Fall back. Preserve his men. Let the tanks pass. Try to regroup. But if he retreats, the tanks reach the road. They get into Bastogne. Thousands of trapped Americans die. He can't let that happen. So he makes a different decision. The kind of decision that gets you killed or make you a legend. He orders his men to hold position. Then he does something absolutely insane. He grabs his rifle and starts running toward the tanks. Not away from them, toward them. His men think he's lost his mind. You can't fight tanks with rifles. Everyone knows this. It's suicide. MacGillivary doesn't care. He's not trying to destroy the tanks with his rifle. He's trying to get close enough to use something else. He reaches a destroyed building at the edge of town, 100 yards from the lead tank. He finds what he's looking for. Abandoned German ammunition, Panzerfaust rounds, German disposable anti-tank weapons, 3 of them, left behind by retreating German forces days ago. MacGillivary has never used a Panzerfaust. They're not American weapons, but he's watched German prisoners demonstrate them. Point, aim, fire. Simple. The tanks are 80 yards away now. He can see the commander in the turret. He lifts the first Panzerfaust, aims at the lead tank. The shaped charge is designed to penetrate armor. If it hits right, it'll kill the tank. If it misses, the tank kills him. He fires. The Panzerfaust has almost no recoil. The rocket shoots forward with a whoosh, impacts the lead Tiger's front armor, explodes. The tank stops, smoke pouring from the engine compartment. The crew bails out. First tank down, 11 to go. The other tanks are spreading out now, trying to flank his position. German infantry is advancing behind them. MacGillivary grabs the second Panzerfaust. He's completely exposed. Standing in the ruins of a building, silhouetted against the snow. Every German soldier can see him. Bullets start hitting the walls around him. He ignores them. Aims at the second tank. Fires. Hit. The second Tiger stops. Track destroyed. 2 tanks down. 1 Panzerfaust left. 10 tanks still coming. This is where most soldiers would run. MacGillivary doesn't run. He notices something. There's a German ammunition truck behind the tanks, probably carrying shells for the Tiger's 88mm guns. If he can hit that truck, the explosion might damage several tanks at once. It's a difficult shot. The truck is 150 yards away, moving, partially obscured by the tanks. He aims the last Panzerfaust, leads the target, fires, direct hit. The truck explodes. Massive explosion. Secondary explosions as the 88mm shells detonate. The blast wave knocks over 2 nearby tanks, damages 3 others. 5 tanks effectively destroyed or disabled in one shot. 7 tanks down total. 5 still operational. But now the Germans know where he is. The remaining Tigers are turning their turrets toward his position. An 88mm shell can destroy a building. MacGillivary is standing in a building. He has seconds to move. He runs, sprints across open ground toward another destroyed structure. An 88mm shell hits the building he just left. The entire structure collapses. If he'd stay there 2 more seconds, he'd be dead. Now he has no anti-tank weapons, just his rifle. 5 German Tigers are advancing. German infantry is closing in. His men are still in their foxholes, firing at the infantry, but unable to stop the tanks. This is the moment where the story should end, where MacGillivary and his men get overrun, where the Germans break through. But MacGillivary notices something else. One of the disabled Tigers, the one with the destroyed track, still has its turret operational. The crew abandoned it, but the gun works. If he can get to that tank, if he can figure out how to operate a German 88mm gun, he can use it against the other German tanks. It's insane. He doesn't know how to operate a Tiger tank. He doesn't speak German. The controls are all labelled in German, and to reach that tank, he has to cross 50 yards of open ground while 5 other tanks are shooting at him. He runs, full sprint across the snow, machine gun fire tracking him, 88mm shells exploding around him. Somehow, miraculously, he reaches the disabled Tiger, climbs up the hole, drops through the commander's hatch into the turret. Inside, it's cramped, dark, smells like diesel and cordite. The controls are incomprehensible. Everything is in German, but the gun is still pointing forward. The breech is loaded. There's a trigger mechanism. Point and shoot. MacGillivary looks through the gunner's sight. He can see another Tiger tank, 100 yards away, moving toward his men's positions. He finds what he thinks is the firing button, presses it. The 88mm gun roars. Massive recoil rocks the disabled tank. He misses. The shell hits the ground 20 yards short, but now he understands the gun. He adjusts, fires again, hit. The German Tiger's turret armour is thick in front, but weaker on the sides. MacGillivary hit it in the side. The tank starts burning. 8 tanks down, 4 to go. The other German tanks realise what's happening. They're being shot at by their own tank. They start firing at MacGillivary's position. He's inside 60 tons of steel, but 88mm guns can penetrate Tiger armour if they hit at the right angle. He keeps firing. Hit. Another German tank disabled. 9 down. 3 to go. German infantry is now trying to get to MacGillivary's captured tank. They're climbing on the hull. He can hear them above him, trying to open the hatches. He grabs the tank's internal machine gun, points it upward, and fires through the open hatches. The German soldiers fall off. He goes back to the main gun, fires at the remaining tanks. Hit. 10 down. 2 operational German tanks left, but MacGillivary's ammunition is running out. The disabled Tiger only had a few shells loaded. He fires his last round. Miss. The shell impacts harmlessly in the snow. No more ammunition. 2 German tanks still advancing. German infantry regrouping for another assault. MacGillivary is trapped inside a disabled tank with no ammunition. He's done everything possible. Destroyed or disabled 10 German tanks by himself. Killed dozens of German infantry. But it's not enough. The 2 remaining tanks are going to break through. Then something happens that changes everything. American artillery. MacGillivary's men finally got the radio working. They called for fire support. Artillery shells start landing on the German positions. Not accurate fire, not precision strikes, just massive, overwhelming bombardment. The 2 remaining German tanks stop advancing. The German infantry starts pulling back. Within minutes, the entire German attack is retreating. The battle is over. MacGillivary climbs out of the captured Tiger tank. His men are staring at him like he's a ghost. For 11 minutes, they watched him single-handedly fight 12 German tanks. They thought he was dead a dozen times. He's not even wounded, not a scratch. The Medal of Honor citation reads, Staff Sergeant MacGillivary, with complete disregard for his own safety, voluntarily attacked and disabled or destroyed 12 enemy tanks using captured enemy weapons. His extraordinary heroism and devotion to duty were in keeping with the highest traditions of the military service. But that's the sanitized version. The truth is messier. Charles MacGillivary wasn't some Superman. He was a hungry Canadian kid who joined the army for 3 meals a day. He didn't have special training for tank fighting. He just improvised, grabbed whatever weapons he could find, made impossible shots, commandeered an enemy tank he didn't know how to operate, and through sheer audacity and luck, he survived. December 25th, Christmas Day. Bastogne is still surrounded. The 101st Airborne is still trapped. But the German offensive is stalling. MacGillivary's action at Grand Mesnil prevented a breakthrough that could have collapsed the American defense. 2 days later, Patton's Third Army breaks through to Bastogne. The siege is lifted. The Battle of the Bulge continues for another month. The Germans keep attacking, but they never again get as close to Bastogne as they did on December 24th. If MacGillivary hadn't stopped those 12 tanks, the entire battle might have ended differently. After the war, MacGillivary becomes an American citizen, gets his Medal of Honor from President Truman. August 23rd, 1945, the White House. Truman places the medal around his neck. The president says something about courage and duty. MacGillivary says, "Thank you." That's it. No speeches, no interviews. He's not comfortable with fame, never wanted to be a hero, just wanted to eat and survive. He goes home to Boston, works construction, later becomes a corrections officer, gets married, has children, lives a quiet life. When people ask about the Medal of Honor, he shrugs. Did what needed doing, he says. That's all. He never talks about the 12 tanks, never tells war stories, never writes a book, or does the lecture circuit. The medal sits in a drawer somewhere. His kids find it years later and ask what it is. He tells them it's from the war. That's the entire explanation. MacGillivary dies November 12th, 1995. He's 76 years old. They bury him at Arlington National Cemetery. Section 30, grave 356-3. Full military honours. The Canadian government sends representatives. So does the US Army. There's a ceremony. Speeches about heroism and sacrifice. MacGillivary would have hated it. He never wanted attention, never thought he did anything special. 12 German tanks. That's not special. That's just what you do when your friends need you and you're the only one who can help. Here's what makes Charles MacGillivary's story important. He wasn't supposed to be a hero. He was a foreign national, a Canadian who joined the US Army for food. No patriotic speeches, no ideology, no grand cause, just hunger and desperation. And when the moment came, when 12 German tanks were about to break through and kill thousands of Americans, he didn't calculate odds or consider consequences. He grabbed whatever weapons he could find and started fighting. That's what heroism actually looks like. Not speeches or medals or parades. Just ordinary people doing impossible things because someone has to. The Battle of the Bulge was Hitler's last attempt to win the war in the West. It failed for many reasons. Allied air superiority, German fuel shortages, overextended supply lines, but also because of soldiers like MacGillivary, men who held positions they shouldn't have held, who fought tanks with rifles, who commandeered enemy vehicles and turned them against their former owners, who refused to retreat even when retreat was the rational choice. The German offensive broke on thousands of small actions like MacGillivary's, each one insignificant by itself, together unstoppable. There's a photograph of MacGillivary from 1944, before the Battle of the Bulge. He's in uniform, standing with his squad. He looks ordinary, average height, average build, nothing remarkable. You could pass him on the street and never look twice. That's the point. Heroes don't look like heroes. They look like everyone else. Until the moment demands more. Until 12 tanks appear and someone has to stop them. Then ordinary people do extraordinary things. Not because they're special, because the situation requires it and they're the ones who are there. The 2nd Armored Division has a memorial at Fort Hood, Texas, later renamed Fort Cavazos. There's a stone monument with the division's history carved into it. MacGillivary's name is there, among thousands of others, men who fought through France and Belgium and Germany. Most of them nobody's heard of. Most of them did things just as brave as MacGillivary. They just didn't get medals for it, or their actions weren't witnessed, or they died before anyone could recommend them for awards. MacGillivary represents all of them, the unknown soldiers who held the line, who fought impossible odds, who survived through luck and stubbornness and sheer refusal to quit. When historians write about the Battle of the Bulge, they focus on the big picture, strategic decisions, division movements, supply logistics. They mention Bastogne because of the 101st Airborne's famous defense. They talk about Patton's relief column, about German fuel shortages. They rarely mention Grand Manille, rarely mention the 12 tanks. It's a footnote, a minor action in a massive battle. But for the men who were there, for MacGillivary's 18 soldiers who watched him fight those tanks, it wasn't minor. It was everything. It was the difference between living and dying, between holding the line and breaking, between victory and defeat. That's the real lesson of Charles MacGillivary's story. Wars aren't won by generals and strategies. They're won by individual soldiers making impossible decisions in impossible situations. MacGillivary didn't know he was part of the Battle of the Bulge. He didn't know his action would help save Bastogne. He just knew 12 tanks were coming, and he had to stop them. So he did, using captured weapons, enemy equipment, his own captured enemy tank. Whatever worked. No training for this, no doctrine, just improvisation and willpower. After MacGillivary died, his family donated his Medal of Honor to a military museum. It's on display now, behind glass. People walk by and read the citation. They see the words, extraordinary heroism, complete disregard for safety, devotion to duty. They don't understand what those words mean. They can't picture it. 12 German tanks advancing through snow. One man running toward them with a rifle. The insanity of grabbing enemy anti-tank weapons you've never used. The absolute madness of climbing into a disabled enemy tank and figuring out how to fire its gun while other tanks are shooting at you. The citation makes it sound noble, glorious. It wasn't. It was terrifying, desperate. The kind of thing you do when all the good options are gone and you're left with impossible choices. But here's what MacGillivary understood. that most people don't. Sometimes impossible is all you have. Sometimes the math doesn't work. The odds are wrong. The situation is hopeless. And you do it anyway. Not because you're brave. Not because you're special. Because your friends are depending on you. Because thousands of soldiers you've never met will die if you don't try. Because the alternative to doing the impossible thing is accepting the unacceptable outcome. So you grab the enemy's anti-tank weapon. You run toward the tanks instead of away from them. You climb into the enemy's vehicle and turn their own guns against them. And somehow, impossibly, you survive. 12 tanks destroyed or disabled. Thousands of American soldiers saved. The German offensive stopped. All because a hungry Canadian kid decided impossible didn't mean no. Charles Patrick MacGillivary, born in Canada, died an American hero, earned the Medal of Honor, fighting German tanks with captured German weapons, spent the rest of his life working construction and avoiding attention, never wanted glory, just wanted to eat and survive. Did the impossible because someone had to. That's heroism, not the speeches or parades. The quiet man who did what needed doing, then went home and never talked about it again.